welcome everybody to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Yesterday we had sleepers. Tomorrow is our breakouts bonanza. Today we are talking about the biggest busts in fantasy football, and we got some big names between Dave, Jamey, and Heath. Some of the names you're going to hear: Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Rhamondre Stevenson, maybe Justin Jefferson, maybe Jahmyr Gibbs, Davante Adams, Brandon Aiyuk. These are some big-time names here, so we're looking forward to talking about it. He's having fun with the comments. Yes, Josh Allen will be mentioned.
That was before the show. I thought it was hilarious because before the show, Matt says, has anyone said Josh Allen? And it's the very first name you say.
And I didn't see that comment, by the way. I have some announcements to make real quick here before I get the guys involved. The FFT Open is full, and I want to thank everybody. That means we raised $33,000 for St. Jude. Yeah, wait, where's my applause thing here? It is right here. Yeah, way to go. Thank you, everybody, for participating. And drafts. The drafts will probably start next week. They're going to be untimed drafts or slow drafts, maybe like 4 hours on the clock. I'll let each individual commissioner figure that out. But they'll take place, and
30-minute time limit.
Yeah, extend into maybe a couple weeks it might take. But it's only a 13-round draft, so it shouldn't take too long. But don't worry about it. If you haven't gotten your invite yet, don't worry about it. These are going to get sent out hopefully today, but by the end of the week. Now, the Podcast League. Our Podcast League is Monday, August 26th. This is our 14-team league. Monday, August 26th, 9 p.m. Eastern, we are drafting. Usually I ask for submissions for this, but this year, we just want to raise as much money as we can. So these are going to, now that the FFT Open is full, now we're going to put our Podcast League spots, and I think there's 6 to 8 of them available. 14-team PPR league. Our draft is Monday night, August 26th at 9 p.m. Eastern. So keep an eye on tinyurl.com/draftathon2024. I'm thinking maybe on Thursday they'll be available to be bid on. I can't, don't hold me to that. But
really kind of rude to Jamey, like ruining his bit. Jamey can't put people in the Podcast League anymore?
You cannot put people in the Podcast League unless you go tell them to pay up for St. Jude. However, the Podcast Leftovers League, this one is going to be free to enter, and this is going to be the following night, Tuesday, August 27th at 8 p.m. Eastern. This is me and Heath against 9 of you. A
16-team league, right?
Nope, 10-team Superflex League.
16-team league.
A 10-team. It's the same league we've done for like 8 years.
I know, but things changed this year.
No, they don't.
Superflex and do a 16-team league.
We need to add some people. Yeah, 16-team league. We need to add some people in. You don't
10-team Superflex League. Anyway,
screw you. I'm going to do a 16-team Leftovers Podcast League myself. Why are you muted?
Oh, you muted me. You cannot mute me.
You cannot mute me.
You cannot mute me.
I'm doing a 16-team Podcast League myself.
There we go.
All right. Please. It's getting confusing. 10-team Leftovers League, Superflex, Tuesday night, August 27th. If you want in, 8 p.m. Eastern, send some submission to fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. If you want to send something creative, go for it. You want to send a poem, a video, whatever it is, try to put it on YouTube so I don't have to download anything. If you want to say, hey, I want in the league, just do it. Hold on, Heath. Fantasyfootball@cbsi, the letter I.com, and put Podcast League in the subject line. Yes, Heath.
How many syllables is poem?
I say that one weird too. Poem. Okay, yeah, poem. And tomorrow is our Breakouts Bonanza. We're actually going to record these all today, this afternoon, between 1 and 3 o'clock Eastern. That's Wednesday afternoon. If you want to watch those at youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. 4 different episodes, 3 tremendous guests from around the industry. We have Alfredo Brown, Chris Harris, and Joe Pisapia. We're going to be doing a 20-minute episode on each position for breakouts. Now, on to the show. Sorry for delaying. What is a bust for you guys? Like, how does it? Is it just someone who doesn't meet their ADP? Is it someone who's absolutely terrible? Dave, how are we defining bust?
Probably a combination of the two. Somebody that isn't worth what the average draft position says or where you took them probably is more appropriate in the draft. And then they just are terrible. Thinking back to last year, a lot of people got really excited about Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley didn't even finish as a top 24 receiver on a per game basis. A lot of people were excited about Davante Adams. Davante Adams had one of his worst seasons, but was still good for fantasy. Some would say that he was a bust last. And so I think that that's kind of what you're looking for from a bust, is somebody who could underperform. And those are the guys you, of course, want to avoid.
Yeah. Davante Adams was wide receiver 17 per game in PPR. He was drafted probably as like wide receiver 6 or 7. He was definitely a bust. Tony Pollard was a bust. All right. If you guys have anything to add, we can, or we can just start naming some busts.
Name.
All right, Jamey, you can go first. Give me 2 busts for 2024.
Jahmyr Gibbs and Davante Adams.
Jahmyr Gibbs and Davante Adams. Okay. Just a quick note, by the way, when I give the round that these guys are going in, we use 12-team leagues, and we typically use PPR ADP. Jahmyr Gibbs and Davante Adams. So let's talk about Jahmyr Gibbs and where you think he should be going over the just yesterday. Actually, I just looked at NFC drafts yesterday, and there were only 6 of them. Jahmyr Gibbs was RB6, and he was going 15th overall. What do you think?
A little bit lower than that in both categories.
Yeah, I've got him 8th at running back and 17th overall.
I have him 9th and 20th overall.
So I'm still the high guy on him. I've got him 14th overall and probably like 5th or 6th among running backs right now. 6th.
This is Jahmyr Gibbs we're talking about. So Jamey and Heath, who did you move ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs?
I moved him behind. I had him 4th, so I moved him behind Barkley at 5, Taylor at 6, Kyron at 7, Pacheco at 8, and Etienne at 9. So
Kyron, Cook, and Etienne, as well as Marvin Harrison.
Yes, and I put him behind those receivers overall. So Puka, Harrison, Drake, London, and Chris Olave.
Is it just the hamstring, or is there more to it? Because you had him ranked higher all off season long.
It's the hamstring. It's the second hamstring this offseason. So I'm concerned about soft tissue injuries and recurrence.
Sure.
And not just like it is the hamstring, but it's also they've talked all offseason about how they want Jahmyr Gibbs to have a bigger role than he had last year. And he has to have a bigger role than he had last year to justify a first-round ADP. And I don't know that they'll give him a bigger role when he's not been able to stay healthy in shorts.
Yep. He was last 9 games with David Montgomery, number 10 running back per game, on pace for 200 carries and 45 catches and 17 touchdowns. If you watched the live stream last night, I'm sorry for being so repetitive, but number 10 running back per game last year after David Montgomery returned from injury, and he was averaging a touchdown per game, but only on pace for 245 touches overall. All right, so that's Jahmyr Gibbs. If you're still high on him, you might actually get a discount. That's the good news, but
yes.
The bad news is the hamstring injuries. Davante Adams showed up on both Jamey's bust list and Heath's bust list. Dave, do you actually disagree with that call right now? Davante Adams is wide receiver 10 on CBS, wide receiver 10 on Fantasy Pros, wide receiver 12 on NFC.
Ooh.
I've barely got him as a round 2 pick. I'd much rather have him in round 3.
And he's going round 3 in our drafts, but more like 20th in Fantasy Pros and NFC ADP. Jamey and Heath, where do you have Davante Adams ranked? Why is he a bust?
He's 16th for me and middle to the end of round 3. I don't know exactly what number.
He's 24th for me in round 4.
Ooh.
Holy moly.
How some names. Who are we drafting ahead of Davante?
I mean, he's in the mega tier, so I'm not like saying that there's a huge difference between him and wide receiver 14. But if we start at wide receiver 14, which is where the mega tier starts, Cooper Kupp, DK Metcalf, Drake London, T. Higgins, Nico Collins, George Pickens, maybe. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Aiyuk, maybe. Amari Cooper, DJ Moore.
Why so low on Davante Adams?
I think that there is a chance that this Raiders offense is just a complete disaster. I think that you look at Davante Adams last year in terms of his efficiency metrics, and there was a major drop-off from what he has been in the past. And I have a rule with wide receivers that are over 30 that when they show you a drop in production, believe them.
Can you go back, Thomas? Can you put the graphic of his projections up?
For what? Yeah. Okay. So projections are
154 for targets is scary.
It's not really that scary. That's still
For
going to
him,
but still going to be a lot more than most of the people he's being drafted.
It certainly is. And again, this is, I guess, where Heath and I differ. That I don't expect him to completely fall off, But a big reason why he's been successful, at least last year, was 170 plus targets. I mean, that's significant. That's 20 targets difference.
He's dropping a target per game.
Huh?
If he goes from 170 to 154, he's dropping a target per game.
Well, I think it was like 177.
It was 175 last year, but 154 targets is still going to be among the league leaders. And if you like Adams, which people do, obviously people are higher on Adams. Dave, where do you have him?
He's wide receiver 12 for me right now, but he's in Heath called it a mega tier. I call it like this range of guys who are de facto low end wide receiver ones, but are more wide receiver twos.
You got to admit,
toward the top of that range.
You got to admit, mega tier has a better ring to it than.
Yeah, but mega tier sounds like an awesome tier, and Heath's tier sounds like a bunch of wide receivers that have upside to be wide receiver ones, but are probably going to be wide receiver twos.
You know what's awesome about the mega tier is that some of them are going in round 3, and in CBS drafts, some of them are going in round 7. And so when you get one in round 6 or round 7, it's awesome. I will say like 154 targets is almost exactly where I have him. The big difference is he an 8 to 9 yard per target guy like he was the 5 years before last year? Or is he 6.5 like he was last year? Because 154 targets at 6.5 yards per target is barely 1,000 yards, if that. Is he a 6 to 7% touchdown rate guy like he was the prior 4 or 5 years? Or is he 4% touchdown rate guy like he was last year? Because a 4% touchdown rate with 154 targets is 7 touchdowns. Barely. Go ahead.
Different system, but what was our complaint about Michael Pittman with Gardner Minshew last year?
All targets, no touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know that it translates, but it's.
I don't know that translates either, but it's certainly something to consider.
Yeah, it's just, I think what's kind of interesting is like I don't know the answer to this, but if you polled 32 NFL GMs or any NFL executives and you asked them, hey, who's a better receiver right now, Davante Adams or Mike Evans? What do you think the answers would be?
Davante Adams. Look, people are gonna love Davante Adams.
This is what I'm saying. Like,
I don't know if anybody's saying that his talent is bad.
They would.
Heath is, that's what I'm saying.
This is a fantasy reality conversation. No one is going to say Davante Adams is worse than Marvin Harrison Jr.
No. Well, I mean, he might be, but that's
no one is going to say that. No one is going to say that.
Okay, but you see what I'm getting at, Heath. You see what I'm getting at, and I'm not trying to criticize. You might be right. Maybe what he showed statistically was the real decline. But what I'm saying is, if people don't really think that real decline is there, and he just had a bad season for whatever reason last year, and if they still think he's better than, say, Mike Evans, then I am going to take those 154 targets from Davante Adams and take that in the second round.
Yep.
Yeah, all targets are just not created the same. Like if Mike Evans is getting reasonably accurate targets 15 yards downfield, and Davante Adams is getting scattershot targets 8 yards downfield, they're not as valuable.
Yeah. Right.
Or you know what you could do? Just avoid them both.
You could, but okay. All right, we got to take a break here, and we'll come back and we'll get a lot more, many more busts. So far, Jahmyr Gibbs and Davante Adams. By the way, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FANTASY. You're going to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. And here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. We will be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield. Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to take kind of a segue here. Something that happened last night that really just got my brain cooking. Because we're talking about busts, and
you stayed awake watching a TV show.
No, I fell asleep watching a TV show. The season 3 of The Bear, which should be called The Boar.
That's a good one.
It's just not good.
I've never seen it, so it's a good one.
Although I fear it gets better. I just can't get through it. But anyway, we were doing a draft last night, and Cooper Kupp went ahead of Puka Nacua. this was one of our St. Jude drafts. It was middle of the second round for both of them. But, you know, you talk about Davante Adams, Mike Evans maybe is on this bust list. Drake London might be on this bust, whatever. This whole group of wide receivers after the first 9, some of you are going to have different busts. Some of you are going to have different breakouts, whatever. And I'm starting to think, like, should Cooper Kupp be wide receiver 10? I know this is not a bust show. I know this is a bust show and this doesn't really qualify. But if you try to make the case for all of these guys, Puka Nacua is hurt right now. Puka Nacua has an extensive injury history. Cooper Kupp did play through injury last year. Like, should he start going ahead of all of these guys? Sorry for the detour, but I just thought it was kind of relevant in this discussion where we're talking about bust wide receivers in this range. And Cooper Kupp, I see, continues to gain some momentum.
He's starting to, you know, depending on where you look and people who, you know, comment in our chat, and, you know, you see different, you know, chat stuff of things where, you know, these things are discussed. I mean, look, Dan's been saying it all offseason, right?
Yes.
You know, so there are people who believe it.
Yeah.
The problem is, again, I'll go back to this, and clearly it sounds like we have 3 different opinions on these 3 guys. Or at least it appears. Cooper Kupp, Davante Adams, Mike Evans. They're 31 years and older. There's been 63 wide receivers since 2014, a 10-year span, that have played at 31 years or older. 8 have been top 12 in PPR. So there's clearly a chance 1 or all 3 can do it. They could finish top 15. They could finish top 20 and still be successful. In some cases, depending on when you draft these guys, how receivers get pushed up, you may draft them at wide receiver 20. It's just you're taking a risk at this age. As Heath said, when they start to show you something, whatever it may be, performance, efficiency, injury, they start to tell us in some way, shape, or form that they're not the same guy. And something has changed in some capacity for all these guys. For Kupp, we saw it last year. Somebody came on to the team and dominated him. Again, in whatever capacity, missing time, performance, whatever you want to say. New go-to guy for Matthew Stafford. May change back. For Adams this year, they drafted a first-round pass catcher. And they have a new quarterback, potentially. Maybe good, maybe bad. Who knows? But it's a change. For Evans, Godwin's going back inside. Last 5 games, more targets than Evans. And they have what seems to be an upgraded third receiver that is getting rave reviews in Jalen McMillan. Again, something changed plus a new coordinator. So there's something different for all these guys. We'll see again how it affects them. 2 of them, maybe 3, are Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
And so will they continue to produce at age 31 when history tells us they start to decline and potentially steep decline? And I'll just go back to Adams again. Went from 19 plus PPR points per game to 15. The only one of these 2 that did not get hurt, these 3 that did not get hurt, that had a big decline.
All right. Fair enough.
Wait a minute. Cooper Kupp got hurt.
Right. He's saying Adams.
He went from 22.4 to 13.7.
But got hurt.
Oh, he didn't get hurt.
He was saying Adams was the only one who declined without an injury.
His situation got worse and his production took a massive hit in the middle of the year.
And the reason, like, Evans is the one that I'm still high on is he's the one guy that didn't show us last year. Really, I mean, in some metrics, he had the best year of the last 5.
Yeah,
right,
so,
but do you want to stay on that train or
right,
get off before the train derails? And that's, I think, what people have to decide.
And I think if you're going to get off the train with one of these guys, you probably should get off the train with all 3 of these guys. And then the question becomes, which receivers are you targeting when you get to round 3, which was fertile ground for receivers when we were considering these guys. And now maybe it's not because we're lifting the old guys out of the pool.
But then again, it comes down to how you draft. And so if you draft receiver, running back, receiver, or receiver, 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 getting one of these guys in that range as your second guy, or more importantly, as your third guy, that's a hell of a build. I'll take my chances all day long. If you tell me Davante Adams might get my third receiver, please.
But it makes me puke to think about going running back, or for the home leaguers out there, running back, quarterback, and then you take one of these guys as your wide receiver 1. I don't think that works.
All right.
And I like Adams. I like Adams the best of the bunch.
Get off my train. We need that soundbite, by the way. Movie?
When did we switch from canoes to trains?
I don't know. Do you know what that movie is? Get off my train. Come on.
Sounds like Arnold.
It's Ghost. Okay. Heath,
Not Arnold.
been talking about old wide receivers. Maybe we should talk about old running backs. Who are two of your busts?
Yeah, I'll go with Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. As bad as the history that Jamey gave us for wide receivers over 31 is, it's pretty awful for running backs over 30. And especially like the Ravens have a pretty significant history of sharing touches amongst their running backs. I think most of us thought that will change a little bit with Derrick Henry, and they can't stop talking about how much they want to play Justice Hill. And Lamar Jackson's definitely going to have 30% of the team's rush attempts. And Lamar Jackson's definitely not going to throw the ball to Derrick Henry, which he didn't really catch passes anyways. Gus Edwards scored 13 touchdowns last year and finished somewhere around RB 40. Derrick Henry's going to need 20 touchdowns to be a top 12 running back.
I mean, Gus Edwards didn't really have that many carries, though, right? Like Henry's definitely going to out carry Gus Edwards. You would think, right?
I think so. And then the other running back who, like, he's not quite old yet, but his body might be based on his lack of explosiveness recently. Saquon Barkley going to the Eagles. I don't think you're getting the Eagles offensive line from the last 2 to 3 seasons. It'll be a slight upgrade, but he's not going to catch a lot of passes, and Jalen Hurts is still going to run for more touchdowns than him. I would not take Saquon Barkley based on CBS ADP, and we've been talking about this for a month, but it's still happening. He is RB4 as the 8th pick overall, maybe 9th now, 8th or 9th.
9th right
Where
now.
do you have Saquon?
Pick 19 as RB9.
Yeah, I'll give ADPs for both these guys. So Saquon Barkley, I have 3 ADPs. I have CBS, Fantasy Pros, and NFC ADP over the last week. He's RB4 and 9th and 10th overall in Fantasy Pros and CBS. And over the last week, he's RB6 in NFC. This is Saquon Barkley, and 13th overall. Derrick Henry is RB8 or 9 and 19th to 21st overall in full PPR and half PPR, in both of these, in these, all 3 of these sources. So Saquon Barkley is basically being picked anywhere from 9th to 13th. Derrick Henry is right in the middle of round 2. Does anybody disagree with Heath about Barkley and Henry being busts?
I do.
I don't think they're busts at all. I like where they're being drafted. I wouldn't reach for them.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have Barkley at RB4 also, and he's now creeped into the back end of round 1 just because of Gibbs and Puka moving out. And Henry's right in the same range. I don't know exactly what number overall, but he's RB10 for me. I don't disagree with the history. It's a little nerve-wracking, but in terms of Barkley, I do think that even the worst Eagles offensive line version of the Eagles offensive line is 100 times better than the version of the Giants offensive line. And my gosh, did you not see yesterday? He caught a swing pass that made all the highlight reels. I mean, he's going to be involved in the passing game. Come on. I think we're going to see him involved enough in the passing game to the same level that DeAndre Swift was at minimum, which was a 40 catch season. He get 39 catches in 16 games. Is it going to be the best version of Saquon Barkley? Is he going to get back to his rookie numbers where he had, almost 24 PPR points per game? That's hard to ask. But, again, different versions of this Eagles offense. 2 years ago, Miles Sanders, double-digit touchdowns with Jalen Hurts still, finding the end zone 10-plus times as well. I think Barkley's a better version of Miles Sanders. I think he's a better version of DeAndre Swift. And, yes, he's still young enough where he can still be productive. So I think all these things sort of factoring in keeps me at least in the Saquon Barkley camp and on this upgraded offensive system as a whole. Henry's tougher to buy, but certainly I've been banging the drum for a few years now about, don't draft him. He's going to get hurt. He's old, and he just continues to defy logic. So it's not really like I'm certainly not going to argue don't draft him if you're out. I do think the double-digit touchdowns are there. Is it 20? That's a big ask. 15? I do think if he stays healthy, that's realistic, and he will be better than Gus Edwards. So I don't know if that's the comp really to make, because I don't think they make this acquisition if they're going to have a Gus Edwards type of running back. I think they're going to use him, abuse him. And again, the narrative that they've had to hear all offseason of we didn't run the ball in our biggest game of the season, I think they're going to rectify that a little bit.
That is what I disagree with. They ran the ball more than any team in football.
But not in their most important game.
Not in their playoff loss.
So
That's
that
been
when
sitting in their
playoffs,
brain for 6 months.
It's not going to change their regular season plan.
The other thing I
which is
don't
great for
like
Henry.
is, like, we've got these 2 veteran running backs that it's not like we're saying they're changing teams and have to be as good as they were. they're both being drafted to be significantly better than they were last year. Saquon Barkley scored 10 touchdowns last year and finished as RB9. Derrick Henry
but
scored
his
12
rushing metrics were
touchdowns.
terrible.
And I think some of that was the Giants' offensive line. I think some of it's the fact that Saquon Barkley's not Saquon Barkley anymore. Derrick Henry scored 12 touchdowns and was RB17.
The thing with Henry that I'll go back to is performance and wins versus performance and losses. So I think game script matters for him tremendously. 21 plus points per game in wins. Harbaugh averages 10 wins a season. I mean, if this season's a complete disaster for the Ravens, then yes, he's going to be terrible. If they're the typical Ravens and they're competitive and trying to win the division, and last year they were the 1 seed, I have a hard time him not getting favorable game scripts. And so yes, he may not be as productive as he was. That's certainly the case. And it's going to be I think a fun discussion of the team that he left. Forget about what it was a year ago. The team that he left may have a better offensive line now than the team that he's on now. The Titans' upgrades at the offensive line may be, especially with Callahan and his dad, may be better than the Ravens' offensive line with the losses that they've sustained. That being said, this Ravens' offensive line is much better than the Titans' offensive line from 2023. And so I think game script, I do think, again, matters. I just think, when you get to that round 2 range, and I'm a big James Cook guy. You want to take Cook over him? You get past him. Josh Jacobs is certainly gaining plenty of momentum with the Marshawn Lloyd injury. Rashad White's very productive. All those guys in that range. I put Pacheco ahead of him. So, if you want to put him
ahead of him.
Category 2. I'm sorry?
Pacheco, right? You said ahead of him?
I put Pacheco ahead of him. But again, you want to put him in this category. People may take Henry first. It's hard to overlook what Henry still could be. And so for me, that's why I don't want to reach for him, but I still think he's okay. So I'm not afraid of both those guys at their somewhat current cost. I think 8th overall is too soon for Barkley, but back in round 1, I'm fine.
I agree. These are two teams that they're Super Bowl contenders. They're smart teams. They've made great acquisitions through the years. They both went out. They both did what they had to do to get a veteran running back who they think is an upgrade for their offenses. I just want to tell you what these guys did when they had work last year. And remember, Saquon was with the Giants. He had 11 games with at least 15 touches. He averaged 18.6 PPR points per game. I think that's his ceiling. That's not what Saquon was once upon a time, but that's still really damn good for fantasy. Derrick Henry, 13 games last year with the Titans and that terrible offensive line and awful play calling. He had 13 games with 14 or more touches. He averaged 17.9 PPR points per game. That's his ceiling. He might even be able to break that in Baltimore. I'm good with where they're being drafted. I don't see either of them as busts.
Adam, I know we have to go faster, but I've got a crazy rankings take based on ADP and based on the rankings, and I'm going to try to get you on board with it because we don't agree enough. Full PPR. I like if we're going to take an old running back, I'd rather have your old buddy Alvin Kamara than Derrick Henry.
Okay, I'm in. No, I just needed someone else to support me on that, so I didn't.
Got a back injury now, though. Be careful.
Yeah, mild back injury yesterday, and how many? Okay, he scored almost all of their touchdowns last year. Like you talk about this, like Derrick Henry when he got work, when they won games, he was their entire offense last year. They threw for 3,500 yards and 14 touchdowns. It's not going to happen with the Ravens. They have other options. They have Lamar Jackson who's going to run for probably 5 or 6 touchdowns. He's going to throw more touchdowns. Like they have weapons. Derrick Henry is not the entire offense like he has been for Tennessee over the last 6 seasons or whatever, 5 seasons. All right, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get the last word in there.
How many carries you haven't projected for you?
230. 231. I mean, that's a good guess.
Okay.
I take the over.
All right, Dave, you're up. Give me 2 busts.
Let's start with Kyle Pitts, who I saw in person. I wanted to see if he was better than he looked last year, and I would say that he was. But he was 4th on the team in targets over 2 days with the first team offense. That scared me a little bit. Kirk Cousins saying that he's trying to get him to catch passes away from his body and to run as fast as he can all the time. That scared me a little bit. And then watching Drake London step up and be the number 1 guy and hearing Kirk Cousins just fawn over how Drake London reminds him of his favorite target at Michigan State. That made me like London more. And I think that London's going to be far and away the top target getter in Atlanta. And I'm not totally convinced that Kyle Pitts is going to be this difference-making number 2 target getting guy for the Falcons. And so I know that other people are racing to draft him. They're still banking on the promise that he carried when he was a rookie. We've had 3 years of Kyle Pitts disappointing us. I don't want to be on board that train when it's another year of him disappointing us. Another bust that I have, let's keep it with the Ravens. Zay Flowers. I've been talking about this all off season long. His best games, especially late last year, no Mark Andrews on the field. He also had a lot of great games when the Ravens' run game could not get going. Now Mark Andrews is healthy. Derrick Henry's there. I have a really hard time buying into Zay Flowers at his current ADP. I love the talent. Wish he was on a different team, but I can't get into the idea of him being a true breakout this year when there are so many other pieces in place in Baltimore that hinder his chances of getting a lot of targets, catching a lot of touchdowns.
The thing about Flowers is we've been talking about him going too early for a while, but his ADP is really dropping. He's now around 5-6 pick, like around the 5-6 turn in both CBS and Fantasy Pros PPR average draft position. NFC is just like bananas for wide receivers. So it's almost like every wide receiver is around earlier, and Flowers is going in round at the 4-5 turn basically. But he's wide receiver 26 in all three formats, in all three sites. So it's CBS ADP, Fantasy Pros, NFC ADP over the last week. Wide receiver 26 for Zay Flowers. Is that too early for Flowers?
A little,
but not much.
I've got a different question because I haven't talked to Dave a lot since he went to camp, and something's really bothering me. Who was Kirk Cousins' favorite target at Michigan State?
BJ Cunningham.
So this guy has played with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Pierre Garçon and Stefon Diggs and Adam Thielen.
Drake London too.
And the best comp he's got for Drake London is BJ Cunningham?
He called Drake London the first round version of BJ Cunningham. And just for the record, BJ Cunningham had like 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, tons of 80 catches, something close to that at Michigan State. And yeah, it's fun.
Compare him to
I
one.
Get that. I get where you're going with it. I think it's hilarious too. But this is what he's got. He doesn't have a guy on this team that he's comparing to Justin Jefferson or Deshaun Jackson or whoever else he threw to.
Pierre Garçon, even?
Zay Flowers going ahead of T. Higgins. We don't like that, right?
No way.
No.
Going ahead of George Pickens. If they acquire Brandon Aiyuk, would you take Flowers or Pickens?
Flowers.
Probably Flowers.
I should have said, would you pick Flowers? Does anybody ever say that? Pick Flowers?
Wait, couldn't somebody, you need to draft both and name your team Picking Flowers?
Flowers, yeah, you could do that.
You'll finish like 5 and 9 in your league if you do that, but yeah.
Zay Flowers or Amari Cooper?
Cooper.
I've
got Zay Flowers as a low-end wide receiver 3. I'm not getting him. I'm not drafting him.
All righty. Okay, so to recap, Jamey talked about Jahmyr Gibbs, who he'd like to see go closer to the middle of the second round, and Davante Adams. Heath talked about Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley as busts. Got some pushback from Jamey and Dave. And Dave talked about Kyle Pitts and Zay Flowers.
Yeah, can we go back to Pitts for a second? We have no time.
Give me 30 seconds.
I just think, first off, he's appropriately priced. It's only been 2 years that he's disappointed us, not 3, because his rookie year and then the 2 years prior to this year. I think the one thing about the situation for him now is the last time he was with a veteran quarterback, he had a very amazing season for a rookie. So forget about touchdowns were a problem, but any rookie that's getting 1,000 yards as a tight end is pretty impressive. I just think the price tag's fine. Like, you can debate him versus, because it's that trio. It's Kittle, him, and Ingram. And so if you want to buy into Ingram being that guy without Christian Kirk and performing at that level, great. If you want to put him behind Jake Ferguson and expecting Ferguson to take a step forward, I get it. But at some point you got to ask yourself the question: is this the time I want to get a tight end? And does this guy have still the ability to be a difference maker? That's when I ask myself when I get to this point with him, and the answer is still yes. So I think last time I checked, because I did the ADP story yesterday, I don't know if it's changed. It was like 76th in that range. Like, that to me is fine when you're talking about that trio of tight ends. And so I have him ahead of Kittle right now. If Aiyuk is traded, I'll certainly move that. I'll switch that around. But Kittle trending in the wrong direction. Ingram, I don't think produces at the same level that we saw last year. I'll take my chances with the upside of Pitts as the number 2 target in Atlanta.
Okay, right now he's around 6-7. I'd say round 6, maybe falling into round 7 in CBS. Tight end 8 in CBS, tight end 7 in Fantasy Pros, tight end 6 in NFC ADP over the last 7 days.
If he hits, he's a league winner.
But he did disappoint all 3 years because he was drafted as tight end 4 as a rookie. And he finished as tight end 6.
That was stupid on our part.
Tight end 6 overall, but he was tight end 12 per game. He's only had 1 touchdown. But still, I think
he led the Falcons with 110 targets as a rookie.
1,000 yards as a rookie. I mean, he showed you what he can do. But
yeah, sure. He had every opportunity in the world to do it. I don't think he's going to get that many targets this year.
I just wanted to note that I'm still going down the BJ Cunningham wormhole. He played 9 special team snaps in his NFL career. Did not play an offensive snap.
All right, we got to take a break here. We do have some news and notes to get to, and a lot more. We haven't even talked about Josh Allen. All right, we'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Yeah. All right. What's up? Welcome back, everybody, to Fantasy Football Today. We're talking about our busts here, and are we throwing Justin Jefferson in the conversation? JJ McCarthy is going to have surgery for a torn meniscus. A timetable will be determined after that. It's possible he misses the season, which really stinks. So Sam Darnold's going to be the quarterback for the foreseeable future, maybe the entire season for Minnesota. Dave, this is someone you put on your bust list for this purpose of this show, as you're starting to think about maybe putting Jefferson there. Give me your thoughts on this situation now.
I still have Jefferson as a first rounder. I still have him as a top 10 pick, but I moved him behind Chase, Amon-Ra, and AJ Brown in full PPR. I don't trust Sam Darnold at all. We're talking about a quarterback with a career completion rate of under 60%, a quarterback who's never connected with a wide receiver for more than 850 yards or 6 touchdowns in a single season. You'll point to DJ Moore's year in Carolina with Darnold. It took another quarterback to get DJ Moore over 1,000 yards. He probably would have gotten there with Darnold, but I think he's just a problem at quarterback for any wide receiver that works with him, including Justin Jefferson. He can still be really good, but he's not a top 5 pick for me as long as Darnold's the quarterback. I almost kind of wish Nick Mullins would get that chance under center again, because we saw good numbers with Mullins and Jefferson. And Mullins, his career numbers they crush what Darnold's done. So I'm hoping that JJ McCarthy's time on the shelf is short. I think McCarthy can be a better passer than Darnold. That's what I was banking on when I had Jefferson ranked as high as I had him ranked. But for now, I'm going to try and let other people get Jefferson. And if I end up drafting him, it's because he falls to me in the late part of round 1.
Yeah, I just don't I don't think Nick Mullins is actually good.
Oh,
and Justin Jefferson.
Sam Darnold is good?
No, he doesn't need a good quarter. He had 427 yards in the last 4 games last year with Nick Mullins.
But 2 of them were against the Lions.
2 of them were against the Lions. Look, this is what happened with Alexander Madison. Alexander Madison, whenever it was weird, it was like,
oh, please do not compare Madison and Jefferson.
No, I'm not. I just say whenever Dalvin Cook got hurt, Alexander Madison would come in and face the worst run defenses in football, and he would put up these big numbers.
Yeah, because Jefferson's never done anything against good defense.
Just stop for 1 second. I'm talking about Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins torched the Lions twice. And yes, in those games, Justin Jefferson had 141 yards and 192 yards, and he had a touchdown in both games. The other 2 games, he had 7 for 84 on 10 targets and 5 for 59 on 10 targets. But it is worth mentioning he had 10 or more targets in all 4 of those 4 games.
I know he played 2 games against the Lions, and he only gets to play 2 games against the Lions this year. But his 17-game pace was 128 catches for 2,023 yards in those 4 games.
Right. So he obviously used better without Cousins than with Cousins.
I'll just go back. We talked about this on Monday. Like, I like the fact that they stayed aggressive, that O'Connell stayed aggressive in the first debut of the Darnold McCarthy era. And Darnold made, I don't know who the throw, maybe it's to Naylor or whoever it was, where it was just, a great second level throw where he was, roll to his right.
That was a good throw.
And again, it's sometimes these guys just need to get with the right coach and brings out the best of them. The best of Sam Darnold is never going to be Kirk Cousins. The best of Sam Darnold may be Nick Mullins. And that's okay, because all he has to do is 10 targets per game to Justin Jefferson, and 7 of those will be catches.
All right, just draft him what overall? Justin Jefferson.
Overall.
5th?
4th overall.
4th?
7th.
9.
Okay. Brandon Aiyuk could be headed to Pittsburgh. Looks like it's going to be Pittsburgh or San Francisco, and could happen today. So get ready for a bonus.
Could happen tomorrow.
Pittsburgh is
next year.
Yeah, it could. we're not supposed to have a show tomorrow because we're recording it today. So I'd like to have the morning off. Brandon Aiyuk, if you wouldn't mind. Pittsburgh has not decided who's going to start at quarterback this week in their preseason game. Dallas linebacker Micah Parsons is very confident that CeeDee Lamb will play in week 1. Jamar Chase was not at practice on Tuesday, which is different for him. So holdout's getting, it's getting close to getting worrisome for Jamar Chase and for CeeDee Lamb. We're not quite there yet. A couple more
great first round we got right now, right? Calf injury, holdout.
Yeah, there's like 4 safe picks.
Knee injury.
For now. Cincinnati backup quarterback Jake Browning is going to miss time with a rib injury, and their second-round pick Mike Hall Jr. was charged with domestic violence. Pretty disturbing details if you read that article. Marquise Brown.
Mike Hall's on the Browns, Adam.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. Cleveland, not Cincinnati. All right, thank you, Dave. Marquise Brown expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a shoulder injury, according to Jordan Schultz. So what did I take him? I took him like 105th last night, Heath? 15? Yeah.
That's fine.
When would you guys take Marquise Brown in the top 100 at this point?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's not overreact here.
Right.
Malik Neighbors says he has no doubt he'll be ready for week 1. Good news on Tyrone Tracy. It turns out Dave did not ruin his whole season, just maybe the first few weeks. He has a low ankle sprain. Washington signed wide receiver Martavis Bryant. Alvin Kamara missed practice with back tightness. And is Keenan Allen really 230 pounds? Because that's weird if he is. Have you seen this? Have you heard about this? He's apparently like 230 pounds.
I don't think that's the case. I watched Hard Knocks last night. He did not look 230 pounds.
One of the reporters who was there wrote that. Not one of the beat reporters, one of the national reporters. Keenan Allen. Jacob Gibbs brought it up in one of the newsletters, and then I saw it on Twitter as well.
It's the thing is, like, when you talk about those old wide receivers, Keenan Allen was better than all of them last year, and being drafted 6 rounds later.
Yeah,
things have changed a little bit for him.
Yeah, he's 25 pounds heavier apparently.
He's been hanging out with me.
All right, let's talk about some busts here. Here's what we'll do. I'll bring up a name, and you give me like the 15-second overview or whatever.
Dave, do you ever go to the ice cream museum?
What's the ice cream museum?
Oh, come on, man.
I don't know.
It was on Hard Knocks last night. DJ Moore took his kids.
Never heard of the ice cream museum in my life.
It's in Chicago?
I went to an aquarium in Chicago once, and it was miserable.
You went where?
Like, the aquarium, like 4 million people there.
Yeah.
Couldn't see anything but people. I can see those anywhere.
You know, aquariums are a little overrated. The animals just kind of swim.
Oh,
they don't really do anything.
Adam's looking for a variety show when he goes to the aquarium.
Yeah, well, you gotta get that with the sea lions. All right, so I'm going to say the bust, and then
so far we got the boar. Kirk Cousins' best receiver is some college guy from Michigan State, and aquariums suck. All right, we're off to a great.
No, they don't suck. They're just a little overrated. All right, give me the overview. Josh Allen. He's QB1. He's going 2-3 turn.
Well, I don't know if anybody heard this or not, but Stefon Diggs is not in Buffalo anymore. We don't know who his number 1 wide receiver is. We just saw Patrick Mahomes have a disappointing fantasy season without good wide receivers. I don't believe he's going to repeat the 15 rushing touchdowns. I do believe the Bills are going to be more run heavy than they have been during the Josh Allen era, at least the Josh Allen QB1 era.
And he is QB what for you?
4.
Okay. 4. Okay. Jordan Love. He's at QB8 right now on CBS, QB9 on Fantasy Pros, QB8 on NFC. Jordan Love.
We saw it again last night in the mock. He went in the middle of round 6. Kyler Murray goes 2 rounds later. Jordan Love's ADP on CBS is currently 65th, a round ahead of Kyler, 2 rounds ahead of Purdy, 4 rounds ahead of Tua and Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams and Trevor Lawrence. Jordan Love is not the type of quarterback that you elevate to that range. He's not going to be a top 3 or 4 guy.
All right, Josh Allen, Jordan Love at quarterback, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry at running back, Davante Adams at wide receiver. We talked about them. Stefon Diggs, he is wide receiver 23 at the 4-5 turn on CBS. He's wide receiver 19 in Fantasy Pros PPR ADP in round 4. And Diggs is wide receiver 24. He's a round 4 pick on NFC over the last week. But we'll look at the 4-5 turn, wide receiver 23 ADP at CBS for Diggs.
The positive for Diggs was that he played all of the 2 wide receiver snaps. I don't actually believe that will be the case over the full season. The Texans like to rotate those spots. And I think at this stage of their career, he is their number 3 wide receiver.
And he is what for you?
He's a wide receiver 3.
Okay. Would you rather have Zay Flowers or Stefon Diggs?
Diggs.
Okay. And then Travis Kelce, tight end 1. This is a guy whose ADP, his ADP is 24th on both CBS and Fantasy Pros. Travis Kelce. I see in drafts that like no predictability when the tight ends are going to go. But I never see them go as early as 24. But that's what ADP is telling me. So Travis Kelce is tight end 1. When would you be comfortable drafting Kelce?
After Trey McBride and Sam Laporta and Mark Andrews have been taken.
Okay, round 4 pick for you?
The 3-4 turn for Travis Kelce for me. I think you can take a little bit of what we said about the older pass catchers. When they show you a little bit of dip in performance, believe them. I think when you're talking about a Chiefs team that knows they're going to be playing in late January, there's no reason to believe they're going to use Travis Kelce like they have in the past, unless you're talking about last year in the past. And I think they very much might, especially considering they added 2 new, much more qualified pass catchers than they had last year.
By the way, if you're looking at the video, I said Travis Kelce was 24th in ADP. This has him at 31. This is non-PPR, what you're seeing on the video. Full PPR, he's 24th.
Right.
So I think that if you see any ADP, it's probably non-PPR on the video.
So I just have a question, Heath. You said you'd take Kelce at the 3-4 turn?
Yeah, into round 3.
So you would take the other 3 guys in round 3?
I have the other 3 guys in round 3, yes.
Okay, yeah, because I know you've been saying, at least I thought round 4 for the tight ends.
What I usually do, because I have Trey McBride first and he goes in round 4,
Gotcha.
is I take somebody else in round 3 and then I take McBride in round 4.
Gotcha.
Do you feel like Stefon Diggs has the least upside of the 3 Texans receivers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but also the most upside. Like I feel like all 3 of these guys, like you can make an argument for both sides.
Why is how come Nico Collins isn't on anyone's bust list in the 3rd round?
Because he's the best of the 3.
Heath, you don't take Nico Collins, right? Typically.
I don't. I do have him ranked the highest of the 3. I just don't have as big of gap, I don't think, between him and Dell. I have Nico at pick 38.
Okay. If anybody wants to jump in on any of these, Josh Allen, Jordan Love, Stefon Diggs, Travis Kelce. Those are the 4 that we have not yet debated.
Debate me, Dave.
On who?
I don't care.
I'll debate you on Kelce. He was tight end 1 per game last year with 5 touchdowns.
But here's the thing. If Travis Kelce scores 14.5 PPR, any tight end that you're taking in round 2 that scores 14.5 fantasy points per game, even if the whole position just sucks and he's still tight end 1, you don't want to draft that 14.5 points per game in round 2.
Yeah, I agree. So he's at the 2-3 turn. I think I'm probably on this show, the high guy on Kelce. If Schneier were here, he'd be the high guy on Kelce. I start looking for Kelce around 30th or so overall. And if no tight ends have been off the board at that point, I'm probably not taking him because I think there's a decent chance I get Andrews and McBride the next round and maybe Kincaid around after that. I
think you could make this like if you don't want to talk about the players themselves, and I'm fine with that, and you just want to talk strategically, it's the same argument for Kelce or Allen. Is I think there's a top 4 at quarterback, there's a top 4 at tight end. There's not enough difference between them to take one of them a full round earlier than you can get one of the other ones. And you can always find a tight end a round after Kelce goes. You can always find a quarterback a round after Allen goes that's in that top tier.
I guess I just can't quite get over his postseason. 71 yards, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns, 161 yards and a touchdown, 93 yards. Like he showed he still has it, and he was playing with a foot injury last year.
Definitely tight end 1 in playoff leagues. I don't think. I know it's like it sounds like I'm just being like the overconfident Chiefs fan, but they're not going to have to use it. And I think I have that concern a little bit with Henry and Barkley. Like Dave said, these are Super Bowl contenders that are very smart teams. I'm not sure they're going to give their aging running backs 20 touches a game when they're going to be in the playoffs and need those guys to be healthy.
All right, let's go over to Dave's busts here. But before we do that, I did want to bring up a Twitter poll. Just, it's kind of a bust take from Heath. Almost 70% of respondents have a TV in their bedroom based on 2 different Twitter polls. So
yeah, I don't think I ever argued that like a majority of people don't do that.
I guess you didn't. All right, fine. You don't lose. You don't lose. All right, Dave.
Adam, I may have to go if you want to do mine first.
All right, let's go to Jamey's busts. Dak Prescott. He is QB9 going in round 6.
Very similar to what Heath was talking about Jordan Love. I was almost going to jump in and say that's too soon for him. This CD Lamb holdout is making me nervous because if he doesn't have Lamb for any stretch of the season, it's going to be an absolute disaster for him. Clearly, everybody will run away from Dak Prescott, but it's more about where he's being drafted versus some of the other guys that are going behind him. I actually do like Love better than Dak. I think there's very similar profiles, speak from a rushing standpoint and how they'll perform. So I would prefer Love. I definitely like Kyler better, and I would take Jaden Daniels at this point. I've been like that for a few weeks now, but I would take Jaden Daniels over Dak as well, just because, again, more upside there. So that's my argument against Dak.
All right, Jahmyr Gibbs, we already talked about. Let's go to RB's 19 and 20 in ADP. James Conner and Aaron Jones. They're both going in round 5 in CBS, about the 5-6 turn in Fantasy Pros, and round 6 in NFC ADP over the last 7 days. So James Conner and Aaron Jones, too old, Jamey.
Thank you. Next.
Well,
if they were 19 and 20 years old, yes, I would absolutely be all on board. But both are 29. And in the case of Aaron Jones, we've heard a couple of things that there's going to be a shared workload there. And so I would absolutely not be drafting him in the spot where he's going. He is outside the top 24 for me. Connor is at 24. I was mildly encouraged by Trey Benson's lack of explosiveness. So it makes me a little bit more comfortable that Connor may not be coming off the field for somebody else. But we did see some things last year that are a little bit concerning. First off, his role in the passing game was disappointing. And I know it changed a little bit when Kyler Murray was back. But in terms of his targets and catches per game, lowest since his rookie season, highest yards per carry in his career. So that's good. But I'm just concerned that we've seen a guy miss 3+ games in 4 of the last 5 years at 29. Just not somebody that I'm comfortable drafting at that spot. So there are a couple of running backs I like better than him, and a handful that I like better than Jones. And if you just want to put the other old running back who's being drafted as a top 24 guy here as well on CBS, Raheem
Derrick Henry,
number 24. Yes. Raheem Mostert is number 24. I don't buy him being anywhere close to what he was a year ago. And 32 years old with what I'm hoping to see, and there's no guarantee, but I'm hoping to see a bigger role for Devon Achane, which I think is what everybody's looking forward to. So potentially 3 running backs in his backfield now. So just these guys at their age, at their cost, no thank you.
Yeah, I made the case on HQ that round 5 is the worst round for running backs. It's basically just Connor and Aaron Jones, maybe like Zamir White gets in there. But it's also because you've got Higgins and Zay Flowers and Amari Cooper and Tank Dell in there. You've got the option of taking Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson. You've got your chance to get Dalton Kincaid maybe. And the running backs in rounds like 6, 7, 8, I don't know that they're that different than the running backs in round 5. So I just thought like this is not the right time to be taking a running back.
But I agree entirely with everything Jamey said. Who is drafting these guys this early?
Drafters. I just said they're Connor and what do you mean?
I know, but like it doesn't seem I don't hear anybody pounding the table for them.
But it's okay. But it's happening.
I mean, I know it's
like
happening.
Jones
I'm just trying to figure out why.
Connor, right?
Yeah, I understand why people like Connor. Like Connor makes sense. Connor performs every single year on a per game basis. Jones is coming off a great finish to what was a terrible season. The start of it was horrible. He's on a new team. Like I don't get it with Jones. I get it with Connor though. Like Connor, I don't take him there, Jamey, because of all the things you said. But I do see him even in these like expert leagues that I've been in. I see that Connor goes in round 5 pretty consistently. You better like him a lot more than the guys going later because you're passing up on really good players at every other position. All right, Brandon Aiyuk. What's your thought on him right now?
It's more what happens in Pittsburgh, but even the San Francisco situation, like everything feels off. I hate the whole thing. So in San Francisco, he would be a round 4 pick for me. In Pittsburgh, probably a round 6 pick.
I think people are sort of forgetting that Brandon Aiyuk had this historically efficient season last year. How many targets did he have last year? 110, 115, yeah, something like that. Yeah, and that was with Debo missing some games. DJ Moore is a round 4 pick. He's wide receiver 18 in CBS. He's wide receiver 22 in Fantasy Pros. DJ Moore.
Yeah, I've been out for almost the entire offseason on where he's been going. And it's just, again, he was awesome last year. He's going to be very good this year. I mean, you watch Hard Knocks, you see the rapport developing with Caleb Williams. You saw the big play that, they needed the first down in the preseason game. That's where Caleb Williams looked. He's going to lead the team in targets. He's going to have a very good season. He's just not going to perform at the same level that he did a year ago. He did that last year with nothing around him. Now they have the guy who got the most targets per game last year on the field with him in Keenan Allen. They have a top 10 overall pick on the field with him in Rome Odunze. And so asking a rookie quarterback to support all these guys while Moore playing at that level again is just not realistic. And so to take him as a number 2 receiver at the back end of that group or as part of the mega tier, depending how you want to phrase it, I'm fine with it. End around 4, round 5 is where I would take DJ Moore. I'm just not buying him where he was going around 3. And even now, I think he's going too soon.
And David Njoku as tight end 10, round 8 pick on CBS, tight end 9, round 7 on Fantasy Pros, and tight end 10, 8-9 turn on NFC. David Njoku.
I was just looking for a tight end that I don't like, and that's the spot I get to. So it's for me, he's not a top 12 tight end. I would rather, at least at this point, I'd rather take Pat Freiermuth over him. I would take Dallas Goedert over him. Both guys going behind him. So I think for Njoku, he was unbelievable. He won a lot of people fantasy championships last year, but that was with Joe Flacco, and his numbers with Deshaun Watson just weren't there. So will he still have some good weeks? Yes. Will he have great weeks? Probably few and far between. We know what his career has been. So a borderline starter, yes. A top 10 guy, no.
All right. So does anybody disagree with the bus calls on Dak Prescott? We won't do Jahmyr Gibbs or Davante Adams or Stefon Diggs here. They're on Jamey's bus list, but the ones that he just talked about: Dak Prescott, James Conner, Aaron Jones, Raheem Mostert, Brandon Aiyuk, DJ Moore, David Njoku.
I got 3 names that I disagree with.
Oh, all right. Who?
Well, Dak's just been awesome for the last several years when he's actually been on the field and playing and not dealing with injuries and anything like that. You're talking about a floor of 24 fantasy points per game. If CeeDee Lamb is gone, I don't even know if Dak gets drafted. But if CeeDee Lamb shows up, gets into the swing of things in training camp, and is ready to roll week 1, I think that's all Dak needs. I think that the rest of the offense can balance off of that. We know that their run game is a humongous question mark, and we've seen Dak put up very reliable fantasy numbers. So I'm okay with him as a top 10 fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, I think the only way that I see Dak busting is if, like, the vibes in San Francisco and Dallas are both pretty terrible right now. And if there's a problem with Dak's contract or he doesn't play through an injury, or if there's a problem with Lamb's contract or he doesn't play through an injury, that's a big time problem. If Dak and Lamb stay healthy all year long, I think it's more likely he's top 5 than not top 10.
August 25th is my deadline for CeeDee Lamb. If he's not practicing by then I start to get worried and I'll start moving him down. Dak will also move down.
Have you communicated this deadline to him?
No, he doesn't care about what we think.
Okay. I would like it if you did.
Who are the other?
I showed up at somebody's fantasy draft last night via Zoom.
Oh, cool. Dave, who are the other guys?
Connor, it's kind of the same thing as what I said with Dak. We've got 3 straight seasons of him getting at least 15 PPR points per game. No question he's going to miss some time. But we like this Arizona offense. We like where they're going. I don't see anybody that's really a threat to James Conner's workload right now as the early downs back. Averaged almost 20 touches per game in 8 games last year with Kyler, and that includes just 2.9 targets per game. He's going to lose third down work. I think might end up being Michael Carter that takes that role, and not Benson, not DeMercado. But I think he's too big a part of what Arizona does that we just scrap him because he's too old or too worn down. I still think that if you draft him as among those last best RB2s in that round 5 range, maybe you load it up on wide receivers early, I don't have a problem taking James Conner then.
Do you guys? Sorry, go ahead.
I just looked something up with James Conner, and like the thing is, it's kind of like what I said with Dak and CeeDee Lamb. I don't have Conner ranked as high as he's being drafted, and I wouldn't draft him there. If he's healthy for the fantasy playoffs, then he's probably a good pick there. And he's been healthy each of the last 2 years for the fantasy playoffs. Those are also the only 2 years of his entire career that he's been healthy for the fantasy playoffs.
And I will say this just about Dak. It's not about as much his performance. It's about his cost.
By the way, right. By the way, James Conner averaged 17.8 fantasy points per game in the last 8 games of the season with Kyler Murray. That's top 4 last year. Yeah, that's terrific. Hopefully he stays healthy. Do you guys agree with that premise, though, that round 5 is loaded at the other positions? Because this is round 5 right now in CBS, starting at pick 49. It's roughly DK Metcalf, CJ Stroud, Stefon Diggs, Trey McBride, Jahmyr White, James Conner, Joe Burrow, Aaron Jones, Amari Cooper, Dalton Kincaid, Anthony Richardson, George Pickens. And we haven't even
those guys just don't belong.
Right? Like the receivers, the running backs, the receivers, tight ends, and quarterbacks are just great there.
I love the wide receivers and Trey McBride.
Yep.
You don't like Burrow and Richardson. You don't like them in round.
I mean, I don't think it's great. I don't think it's for me to say it's great. It would mean they should go before that. Burrow's fine in round 5, but I kind of feel like I'm settling.
Yeah, those don't sound like values to me.
Okay.
At quarterback.
Yeah.
Better than the 2 running backs.
They just feel like they have more league winning potential than the running backs.
100%.
But I can find a quarterback with league winning potential after round 5 too.
And you could find a running back that's not 29.
That running back might give me 11 points per game.
Sure. Look, it's fair. I think it's a good.
You know who's coming? You know who's coming to round 5 very, very shortly. Probably by the next time we do a podcast is David Montgomery.
Oh yeah,
he's already there for me.
he should go ahead of those 2 guys for sure.
Yep.
He should go ahead of Jones.
I want to get
one spot ahead.
I want to get to Dave's busts here. So DJ Moore is one of them. Zay Flowers, Kyle Pitts, and maybe Justin Jefferson. So there are only 2 left. Rhamondre and DeAndre. Rhamondre Stevenson, he's RB25. And yeah, we'll go in order because DeAndre Swift is RB22. Rhamondre Stevenson is RB25. These are round 6 picks in 12-team leagues in PPR. DeAndre Swift and Rhamondre Stevenson. What's your beef?
So the beef is that I'd rather spend that round 5 pick on Conner and Montgomery and hope for the best with those guys than I would with either Stevenson or Swift, even if I can get them a little bit later on. We saw Stevenson. He got the big role for New England last year, had a 2.5 point per game drop in PPR points, really has never done well in divisional play. The Patriots offensive line still stinks. I don't like that offense at all. You want to talk about bad vibes. They're in the graveyard as far as offenses go. And I don't want to trust a running back on that bad of a team. So Stevenson's someone that I'm pretty much trying to avoid. And DeAndre Swift's on a good team, but he's going to share as of now with as many as 2 other running backs. And this team has just unbelievable talent as far as pass catchers go. And they've got a quarterback that can dive for touchdowns. He did that in college. He'll do that in the pros too. I'm nervous about just how good DeAndre Swift will be. He's on his 3rd team in as many seasons. I think he has 1 year in his last 4 with more than 13 PPR points per game, something like that. So I maybe that's appropriate for a running back in this range, but I still just don't want to draft DeAndre Swift.
Okay. Anybody, any rebuttals?
I draft these guys straight up over the old guys, but
100%.
I don't find myself drafting any of them very often.
Agreed on both. Yes.
So
what does that mean then? So does that mean that you guys are taking running backs like 2 with your first 4 picks? Are you trying to land that position early on so you can just completely avoid running backs in round 5 through 8, something like that?
No, I take 1 and then I take 2 to 3 of Pollard, Robinson, Chase Brown, Spears, that group.
The old hero RB. Yeah, that works. I like that too.
And then come back around and take some of the next group of guys, which is, unfortunately falling apart right now with Marshawn Lloyd and Tyrone Tracy in those group. But in any event, yeah, this is not the range where I like to take running backs. But if I were to, dip my toe in this pool, it would certainly be the younger guys over the older ones. And I do think that the Chicago offense is going to be very fun and productive. And I think Swift is going to lead the group. I don't think it's going to be 3. I think the 2 guys behind him will end up cannibalizing each other. And one will step up to be the second guy if they're still on the roster. So I don't really worry about that so much. And then for Stevenson, yes, the offense is going to be bad. Is it going to be much worse than the Vikings offense as a whole? I mean, that's certainly debatable if you're talking about those two guys in terms of Jones and Stevenson. I would say the Patriots are worse, but I don't know how much worse. And Stevenson was coming on last year. By the time he got hurt, he started to look more like the guy that we saw. And I do think that his volume will be enough, especially still having a role in the passing game, even with Antonio Gibson there. He'll catch enough on first and second down. That should put him in a good enough spot to be in that 13 PPR point per game range, which is around RB20. So again, I would take him over the older guys just based on still having more upside.
Yeah, and I like there's just 3 guys that go behind these guys that I prefer, and it's Pollard, it's Javonte, and it's Jalen Warren. And if you like Najee Harris, he's right in the same range too. Mm-hmm. And then I just take a bunch of back, and if I'm looking for a third running back, I usually take Jonathan Brooks.
Rhamondre Stevenson, by the way, scored 13.2 or more PPR fantasy points in 7 of his 11 healthy games. But when he struggled, it was usually because he wasn't catching passes. So will they keep throwing to running backs on first and second down? That's a big question. It's not a big thing that Brissett has done in the past. It's not really something.
Or Van Pelt.
And rookie quarterbacks. Now, in terms of Van Pelt, he runs an outside zone scheme. That's what Rhamondre Stevenson ran in college. He says very comfortable in it. So he's hoping for kind of a boost there.
He's actually been terrible at it in the pros, but he knows how to do it. He's just got to be able to execute, and the offensive line not being good could hurt him.
Okay. All right. That is it for fantasy football today with our busts episode. Now, if you're on Wednesday, if you're around from 1 to 3 p.m., we're going to have 4 different breakouts episodes with 4 different guests. We look forward to you joining us for that, or you'll hear them throughout the day on Thursday and wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today.